Hey everyone, good evening on this fine Thursday. Can you believe it? It's March 14th. So the month of March is already almost over. I'm your host, David Kafka. Thank you for attending this month's edition of All Access Belize. I'm coming to you from Placencia Village at the Mariposa Beach Resort. So I'd like to invite you all to come, and we'll throw a QR code in there or a website and a coupon code. So if you want to come within 2 weeks, we'll give you 50% off as friends of David. So Mitch is kind of helping us today as Serena's kind of under the weather still. So he's going to be kind of in our background. Um, helping us and kind of guiding us with the questions and all that. So if you have any questions, throw them up in the question and answer box. And then what will happen is I'll kind of monitor that. And then once the questions go away, then we'll kind of look at the chat box if we have time. So again, thank you. Welcome for being here. And I want to introduce you to an exciting, wonderful guest we have today. Um, I'm glad he could attend today because it sounds like there's some nasty weather around him.
Mhm.
Mike, how are you, sir? Tell us where you're coming from and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Mike Anderson. I'm based in St. Louis. I work for a company called Delmar Mortgage. We have been in the company's been around about 57 years. The second generation of the family owns it. Not my family. I've been in the business since 2002. So kind of seen the ups and downs of the real estate and mortgage world through the housing bubble of 2008 and 9, and the last year or two, 2022 and 3 has been a bit of a challenge in the mortgage world as well. But still here and still moving on, living the dream.
All right, great. So the reason why we wanted to have Mike on is because Mike has some exciting news. And when we're talking about Belize, it's mostly a cash market. We do a lot of owner financing. And let me explain what typical seller financing is like. And then we'll kind of get into what Mike's offering and kind of the plans, what Delmar Mortgage is working on to get American financing or North American financing to Belize. So again, if you have any questions while we're talking, type it in. It doesn't have to be about mortgages. It could be about anything related to Belize. No question is off limits. That's why we call it All Access Belize, because we'll talk about everything. But typical seller financing works this way. You'll put anything between, and I'm going to give you ranges, and then I'm going to give you what averages are. So the ranges are around 20 to 75% down. Majority of the time, it's 40 and 50% down. The amortization schedule is anywhere between a 5-year loan to a 30-year loan. So basically what that means is that your payments are set on a 30-year loan, or if it's amortized in 5 years, it's 5 years. But then typically you have a balloon payment somewhere between year 1 and 10. I don't see 10 that often. Most of them are 5. I've seen 5 and 7 are the most common ones. And then the interest rates right now, I've seen 5 and I've seen 10. And I'd say the most common are 7, 8. And again, it's all negotiated in the contract, and it's also predicated on kind of what's going on in the North American market. So, back when interest rates were 2, 3% in the US, we were seeing 4%, 3%, 2%, things like that. But now those days kind of are gone, and they tend to be kind of running at the 7 to 10% range. But again, a lot of it depends on how much you put down. If you're putting 75% down, you'll see, the lower end of the market. If you're putting 10, 20% down, which is very rare, then you're going to see, the 9, 10, 11% interest. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about what Delmar is doing and why it's taken so long for traditional North American financing to come to Belize?
Sure. So the traditional financing where you put a lien against the property, is what we all want to get to. We don't have that product available right now. In Belize, they've got banks in Belize for Belizean citizens, but they really don't loan to foreigners, which is why it's pretty much a cash market. And once I realized that, I've been making a push to try to get that set up here at my company. It could be a couple hundred loans to maybe 1,000 loans in a year once you get it up and running. But for a company, the mega banks, the Wells Fargos, the Chase, Bank of America, to go through all the hoops that needed to lend in another country for a few hundred to maybe 1,000 loans, it's just not worth it for those big companies, right? So that's why none of them have really ever got into this market. Delmar, we've got 150 employees to 200, depending on the market and how busy we are. We'll range between 2,000 to almost 6,000 loans. During COVID, 2020, 2021, I think we were doing 5,800 loans. So a lot of units, right? So if we can bring in 500, 600, 800 loans once we get this up and running, that's a big chunk of business for a company of our size. So that's why it's interesting to us. Now, what we currently have to offer, Delmar is licensed in 40 states in America plus DC. So if there's equity in the states, in the property in the states, we can do a cash out refi. Okay. Now, maybe you've got enough equity, maybe you don't. So then we've got another option that could be used in conjunction with a cash out refi, and it's called the Delmar Solutions Loan. So, and actually I've got a website for that. Can we share the screen here and I can show them that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the website while you're doing that is expat, EXPAT, lenders, plural, with an S on the end, .com. So that is a landing page that kind of goes over some of this, and we're gonna show that now as soon as I have that screen share here. All right, let's see. All right, can everybody see where it says Delmar Solutions Loan?
Yes, sir, I can see it. Okay.
So and again, this is the website is expatlenders.com. It'll take you to this. We've got two options. So option one here on the left, you've got money in a stock brokerage account, something that is not, here's the key, non-IRA 401k, cannot be retirement funds. Okay. So you've got an investment account with Fidelity and you're buying and trading stocks. And let's just, for round numbers, say you've got $1 million in there. If you were going to pay cash for a property in Belize, and let's say it's a $400,000 place, if you were going to pay cash, if you're going to get hit with a 20% capital gains, you really have to pull out 480 and you got to give 80 away, right? And nobody likes that. So this is kind of a way to get around that. So what we do is, if there's, again, say there's $1 million in this account, we will give you a loan against that account up to 70% if it is a stock account, and you don't have to cash it in. And it's just basically prime interest rate, and you can do a line of credit. There's some interest only options for the first 2 years. So if you were maybe going to buy land and build, and you need to keep your carrying costs low until you got it all done, and then you're going to sell your house in the States and pay it down, that's an option. Now, if it is something that is not as volatile as a stock account, maybe a CDs or money markets, whatever else that is just doesn't move around, but you don't want to move them, we would go up to 90% on those. One of the most popular ones for that is going to be life insurance policies with a cash value. So if you've got like a whole life policy, something like that. will basically put a lien against those, so it's not against the property. The nice part about that is we don't really need to know what your income is. We don't need to know where you work. It's more of a commercial loan, so to speak. We would run a credit report to make sure you didn't just file a bankruptcy or have just a ton of collections, right? But there's no real minimum credit score. Then we're going to look at your most recent tax return, and it's got to be, these are American citizens only, guys. So that's the key. They're got to have American tax return, American ID, driver's license, passport, whatever. And then we're gonna look at the tax return, and then we're gonna look at the assets that you want to pledge, right? And if it's an investment account, you can still trade and do things. You just can't liquidate it. And we're going to go to that 70%. Now, if you go right up to the 70, and then the market drops a little bit, you may have to put more money in or pay it down. It's a margin call. Now, it's not like a daily thing, but they're going to look at it every few weeks to a month and go, hey, this has dropped, you need to pay it down. Now, if you're not maxing it out, well, then that's not such a concern, right? If you're not all the way up to 70% loan to value. So if you're buying land, you could use it to buy land. And then while you're getting your building set up, your builder and contractors, you could be paying that down and then run it back up again, right? So gives you a little flexibility. Now, that's option one on the website. And again, that's based on prime. Option two, people like that because it's a 3% interest rate, and that perks everyone's ears up because those are long gone. I don't think we're going to see those again unless we have another global pandemic, right? So what that is let's say you're sitting on some cash or money, something you can move around and not take a capital gains hit. Then what we'll do is you'll move the money into one of our Delmar partnered accounts, and it is FDIC insured, and it's one of our partner institutions that's over 100 years old. And we'll loan up to 100% of that at 3%. And people say, well, you're just loaning me my own money. Why don't I pay cash? Reason being is if you paid cash, now you've got the asset in Belize, the house paid off. But if you ever needed that money back, it's not that like currently you could do a cash out refi and get your money back, right? So it's trapped. So until you sell that house, your money's tied up. But if you moved it into a partner account, we gave you a line of credit up to 100% of whatever's in it. You buy the house in Belize, you still own it free and clear. There's no lien against it. The lien is against that account. But then as you pay it down, now you've got access to those funds again. So, maybe you've got a house in America, you've got some money set aside, you want to buy the place in Belize. Then when you sell the house in America, you pay that back, that line back down, right? And now you've got access to that money again because now you're living in Belize, you've got your retirement home, and you're like, wow, look at all these tourists. I want to buy another one and do Airbnb. Well, you could use that line, and at 3%, you should be able to Airbnb that pretty well. If you can't, then maybe Airbnb isn't for you, or the numbers don't work for that property. So that's why that number two option is really popular, because of the lower rate and not wanting to put all the money into the property in Belize, because then you can't access it until you sell it. And second homes, no matter the market, but Belize in particular, they don't move as quick. Like in America, you throw your house on the market, you're like, oh, I can sell it in 30, 60 days, 90 days, right? If I needed the money. Second home markets usually don't move that fast, so it would take a lot longer. So that's another reason why that option is pretty popular. So that's what we have at this point. So it's really those three options: pull cash out in America. Then we do the Delmar Solutions loan. We got option one, option two. Now, David, did you want me to get into what our future plans are? You want to save that for another day?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Just want to remind everybody, if you're joining late, we're on with Mike Anderson of Delmar Mortgage, and we're talking about financing in Belize. So if you have any questions, throw them in the question and answer box of what we've kind of gone over so far. And then we'll kind of go into option three in a moment. So again, Mike, how have you, we've talked, I don't know, half a dozen to a dozen times. between my agents, different companies I work with. How is the response? Um, have y'all been able to, do any loans like this, or how is it going?
So we've used this loan for other things actually before we moved into the Belize market, believe it or not. Business owners would use it to help fund and expand businesses. I'm here in St. Louis, but I've got a property at Lake of the Ozarks, which is about 3 hours west of me. And there's a big boating scene there, and some of those power boats, 500,000 to 1 million, a couple of them are 1.5 million, right? So boat interest rates, because they're based on prime, they're at like 10% now. So nobody's wanting to spend that kind of money with that high of a rate. So they're like, well, maybe I should pay cash. But then they've got the capital gains hit, same problem, right? So they're using it for that as well. So that's why once, I learned about the Belizean market and the lack of financing for Americans, this was like, hey, we could do this very quickly because it's something that already exists. We just need to get out the marketing piece of it and let people know that it's out there.
Yeah, very good. So again, if you need any cash and you're not even thinking about Belize right now, this will work for you as well. But of course, we'd like to help you figure out a way to buy a property in Belize without using cash. And people I talk to about option two is they just love the idea of it. And just, being able to have your money a little more liquid. And also, again, you're not tying up the property in Belize, right?
Right, because the lien is not against that property.
Correct.
And then the other reason people like 3% is uh, most people buying a second home obviously have a first home. And if they do have a mortgage on it, they probably refinanced a couple years ago. So they're kind of used to the 2.5 to 3.5% range. So they're like, oh, yeah, those rates are long gone, but now suddenly they're here. I like this.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So y'all are kind of quiet today. Maybe Mike is you know, asking or saying everything right where there's no questions. We did have a question about Quebec, and I do have an agent that is fluent in French, so I kind of answered that one already. And then I have a friend that used to play hockey in Quebec, and he lives in Placencia, and he's fluent in French as well. So we try to have somebody, no matter what language you speak, Spanish, French, whatever, we can try to help you or we can help you. So yeah, Mike, so let's talk about, since we don't have any questions, let's kind of talk about where the puck is going, so to speak, what you've been working on, how it's going, and kind of, talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So I've talked to a number of people interested in purchasing properties in Belize, and the challenge is a lot of Americans, they're not keen on doing a refinance right now because they've got a 2.5, 3%, 3.5% interest rate. So when I tell them rates are at 7.5, they're like, I don't want to do that. Well, I've got money in this account over here. Let's pledge this, but it's a retirement account, and you can't pledge those kind of accounts because you can't foreclose on those. They're protected, right? So there was a handful of people that had investment accounts that were non-401k, and that worked. But a big chunk, 80% or more, it was like, Mike, I've got 7 figures in this account, but you're telling me I can't pledge it. No, you can't. So, and that's not our doing. That's just how that type of product is kind of protected, right? So that led me to research, how do we do regular mortgages against the property in Belize, because that's what everybody wanted. So in America, you can get a conventional loan at a 620 credit score. We're working on setting that up. It's probably going to be more like 720. You can do as little as 3% down on a conventional loan in America for a first-time home buyer. We're probably looking at 25, 30% down. We're going to end up following mainly conventional guidelines, but add those extra layers on top of it. Because in America, you close a loan and sometimes a lender would, like Delmar, we hold it, or sometimes we sell it off to, Chase or Wells or Citi or whoever. But ultimately, those servicers, whether it's those companies or Delmar, they're pooling them as a mortgage-backed security and they're selling them to Fannie or Freddie. You can't do that outside the country. So what we're doing is we're setting up a portfolio loan, and we're going to have private funds basically have to fund this. Okay. So, but that also means, those investors, they don't really want to tie those funds up for 30-year loan. It'll be amortized over 30 years, but it's probably going to be a 5 or 7 year balloon, meaning you make your normal payments on that 30-year payment, but at 5 or 7 years, it's due, meaning have you sold the house or have we refinanced it into a new loan? Okay. So that's probably what it's going to look like. The other things that we're going to look for is probably have 12 months reserve payments. So if the mortgage is $2,000, after your closing, you'd need an account that would have another 24,000. Once we've looked at our foreclosure numbers, because we service about 5,700 or so loans. And when we looked at those with conventional financing, 720 credit score or higher with 20% down or more, there was literally only one foreclosure. That was it. So it was like a foreclosure rate of 0.001 something, right? So that's a very safe loan. And that's for us to go to these private investors that fund this. That's the key, is it's got to be safe. And when you tell people out in a foreign country, sometimes they get a little, do I want to do that? So when you say these kind of borrowers, with this much down, reserves, this credit score, it becomes much more attractive to them, particularly those that maybe invest in the commercial market, because the signs are showing that the commercial market in America is going to start coming down occupancy as those commercial notes that were done years ago come due because rates are so much higher. It may not make sense for the business owners to renew. Then you've got vacancies. So we're going to try to go to those type of companies and have them fund this and spread that risk out. Instead of 30 million in one building, maybe it's a pool of 30 million over 60 loans at 500,000 or something. So you're spreading that out over 60 versus one. So we're working on that now. I could say I'm looking for maybe in the next 1 to 3 months. You never know. But as far as the real estate agents, the marketing, the appraisers in Belize, the insurance companies in Belize, we've got all of that framework lined out. We know how to originate the loans, process, underwrite, close, fund them, service them, make the payments. It's just getting the funding, because you can't sell it on the secondary. So you got to have deeper pockets that want to tie that up for a 5 or 7 year period. So that's where my next step is. I'll be meeting with some venture capitalists and things like that. Once that rolls out, I think that would definitely change the market in Belize. I think those that get in there first, it's going to be cheaper, because as more people realize there's financing, then you've got more competition, which could drive up the prices. Now, we are being very careful not to do what happened in America in 2008-9, right? Anybody could get a loan. There was 100% loans, 600 credit scores, and it caused the bubble, right? So we do not want to do that. That's why we're being very, very selective about the credit scores. You're going to have a big, 25, 30% down payment. You're going to have reserves. And why do people buy in Belize that, no capital gains, no inheritance tax? So even if something happened to them, they're probably leaving that to someone else. So that foreclosure rate's low, because you don't want foreclosures. You get too many of those, pulls your market back down. So we're trying to be very strategic about that, so that the market grows and the real estate increases, but you don't want it to spike and then drop, right? So you got to be careful how you do that. And we're paying special attention to that.
Exactly. So one question too, like on option 1 and option 2.
Okay.
How quick is the funding?
So a lot of that is how quickly the client gets us the documents, to be honest with you. The Delmar Solutions option, how quickly can you get me your driver's license, your tax return, a personal financial statement, which usually the CPA has. If not, we've got a little templated one they fill in, and then the assets that they want to pledge. And then, if it's going to be option one where you leave it with your current place, we got to get a hold of them. They've got to sign something saying you can't liquidate those funds. The client signs it, we sign it, right? It's normally a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, right? If you're going to go option two and move the funds into one of our partnered accounts, probably a little shorter, and normal loans in America, I mean, it's normally a 30-day close. So that's probably a little faster. The closing costs on those on the lender side, you're typically going to be above 200,000. So, if it's going to be between 5 and 6 grand, somewhere in there. So, it's comparable to a normal loan in America, depending on your marketplace, that actually may be low.
Right.
And we're okay with that. Because we also think down the road, potentially, once we get the other financing going, they may want to move it to financing against the property.
Yep. Yeah. So basically what he's saying is it's really fast. And a typical closing in Belize is about 45 days anyways, to get all the due diligence that we have to do, to circulate the transfer documents. And then with this case, once he gets the affordable financing in Belize, or the North American financing in Belize, then we have to register the mortgage and all that. So that could take a little bit longer. Scott's asking that you're in 40 states. Is Arizona one of them?
Arizona is one of them. Yes.
All right.
It's like 99% sure, but I want to look on our website. I had it on the screen here. Yes, it is. So when I started at Delmar, it was only like 6, and then now there's 40 plus
40.
DC. So yeah. So that is just, I'll even take this and let me see if I can post that in the chat here. Here's that link, the Delmar Mortgage about. It shows all the states it's licensed in and gives you some history on the company, things like that.
Yeah, perfect. So so again,
David, one thing I do want to say, because you mentioned the timing of things. The other thing with the Delmar Solutions loan, you could do this before you even find a property and get it set up and have it as a line of credit, right? So once you're ready to go, and then you're kind of a cash buyer at that point, right? Because you've already got the loan done. So it's just, okay, I'm going to pull off this line and transfer it for through whatever closing attorney you're using in Belize. So you could get this set up and just sit on it for a while until you find the right house. That would be what I would suggest, because it's better to get all your financial ducks in a row and make sure it's all good to go before you go fall in love with a house.
Yeah, good point. So we're kind of at the halfway mark, everyone. If y'all would like to throw some questions in the question and answer box, please let us know. We had a couple great questions already. And if not, I'll just keep asking questions to Mike, and then we'll kind of go from there. Mike, you and I talked to my mentor, Robert Helms, and he was invested in Cabo San Lucas before affordable financing was there.
Yes.
And what did he say happened in Cabo once? And you kind of touched on it, but what happens with home prices when affordable financing comes in?
So in that market, once the market received financing options, right? The values definitely went up, and the demand went up as well, because a lot of people don't have the cash liquid, but they're like, well, hey, I work and I can afford it. And it drastically drove up the prices. So, as well as other people I've talked to, they're like, as soon as you get this set up, I need to know, because they want to get in right away and then have the people buy after them drive up their prices, right? I mean, we all want to make money in real estate. I mean, that's
Right.
that's the thing.
We're all trying to time it.
Generally speaking, over time, real estate goes up, but then you add a new thing like this, you're gonna have a double whammy pushing those prices up.
Yeah. Just like cars, when affordable financing came to cars, just like when affordable financing came to college education, the prices went through the roof. So, I say that, the best time to buy real estate in Belize was 20 years ago. The second best time is, pretty much now. But you got to get educated. You don't have to jump in tomorrow. You want to use an agent that will educate you. They don't, yes, we want to make commission, right? But we do need to educate you to make sure it's a right fit for you and things like that. So make sure you reach out to us, and if it's not us, just make sure the agent takes their time and educates you on what it's like to buy here and things like that. I know me personally, I can't wait because all my properties here are paid off. So do you think you'll do any lending? And this is just for me on dirt, on land, because I have a lot of land that's paid off. Um, and I wouldn't mind pulling out some equity and buying some cash flowing assets with some of that equity.
I think first we're going to start with what we do most, which is going to be primary residence, second homes, investment properties that are
Yep.
Single family, condo, up to 4-unit properties, right? We're going to start there. Now, if you've got land and then you want to build and then you build something and then you want to pull cash out, we certainly would be able to do that because we'll be able to do purchase and refi because pretty much
Yep.
going to be the same, right?
Yep. For sure.
Down the road, once we see where this goes, that would be our next step. Now, there is obviously a higher demand for finished properties than raw land. So sometimes raw land is viewed as a little more riskier until there's a property on it. So I don't know that it would be the same, terms, but we're going to see, and where this goes, because there is so much potential in this country.
100%.
It's untapped. And, given the size of it, it kind of flies under the radar. And I just happened to come across this by a YouTube video, if you can believe it or not. In the fall, there was the writer's strike in America where there wasn't a lot of new things on TV. And I'm sitting around and I flipped over to YouTube and there was a video that said, I bought land in paradise for the price of a Prius. I'm like, what is this? And I
Yep.
watched it, and then there was some interviews with some agents, and they talked about how there was no financing. And given that's what I do, I started
Yep.
watching more and more agents' videos in Belize, and they all complained about the same problem. No financing. I got Americans that want financing, can't find it. So that's where all this stemmed from, all because I happened to click on a YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly. Great. And I just want to just kind of reiterate that, I'm coming to you from Mariposa Beach Resort. And if you book your stay within 2 weeks of your stay in Belize, if we have space here at Mariposa, we'll give you 50% off. So reach out to Mariposa Beach Resort and enter Kafka Friends 20, and then that's your coupon code, and that'll get you your 50% discount when you check out. So what else did I want to say? So Mike was talking about he can't do self-directed stuff, but you can do self-directed IRAs, and we do sell, I'd say 20% of our sales, maybe a little less, are self-directed IRA sales. So I don't think you could combine the two, but I'm not sure on that. Do you know if you could I know you can't take some money from personal and some money from the IRA, but I'm wondering if you go ahead. I see you starting to talk.
I'm not a financial planner, but I have talked with a few financial planners about this, and they say when you do that and you and buy an investment property, all the proceeds from the
Right.
investment property have to go back into
Correct.
that IRA.
Correct.
And they say it cannot ever be used for personal use.
Correct.
So investment property only. Now, how they track whether you spend a night there or not, I'm not going to get involved
Yes,
in that. But
that's right.
that's between you and the financial planner and the
IRS.
IRS, I guess. But that's the gist of it.
Yes.
Now, if you didn't have all the money, or you wanted to pull money from with a solutions loan and put some of that down and then do the self-directed IRA, I guess you could certainly do that. I mean, that these loans can be used in conjunction. Like, I've got equity in the States and I want to pull some equity out, and I've got some money and I want to do a Delmar Solutions loan, and the two of them, then I can buy the place in Belize. And if you're doing two with us at once, that would reduce some closing costs and things like that. So that would save you some money there because we've already got the documents and all that. So that's a little easier for us to do. And you're already an existing client, you're already in the system, things like that.
Very good. All right, we got some good questions coming up now. Mr. Rogers, Murray Rogers, can you buy, finance, and rent and make an income? Yeah, so you definitely can. How much depends on how well it's managed, because management is the key to all real estate. They're usually the most yelled at, but they are one of the most important. So if you have a good property manager that keeps the expenses down and the income up, you can definitely make money. Now, how much kind of depends on the property, things like that. I mean, I know people that are making, it's $1 million house, they're making about $10,000 net a year after all expenses. And then I know some people that are making, over $100,000 for a 3-bedroom house on the beach with a big swimming pool, and they kind of do some chefs and things like that. So there's definitely money to be made, but it all comes down to management. Murray's, what is the best area to buy and earn an income as a rental? I've seen all areas do pretty well. Of course, the top tourist destination in Belize is San Pedro. Second will be Placencia, Hopkins, Corozal, San Ignacio, and all that will come in behind. I'd say, Corozal is probably a little bit better to live there than rent out, but there's not a lot of competition there. So do like an Airbnb search. There's not a lot of houses for rent in Corozal. So, and Corozal is right next to the Mexico border. So it's a great location, in my opinion. And I'm not sure why there's not that much. You don't get the price per night as you would in San Pedro, Placencia, Hopkins, things like that. But I'd say the top tourist destinations, Cayo is even pretty popular. A lot of people do jungle and sea. So they're here for about 10 days, 7 days, and they spend 4 or 5 days in one area, 4 or 5 days in another area. So definitely, kind of reach out and we can kind of check with you, or you can kind of tell us what you're looking at, and then we'll kind of guide you on based on, it really comes down to your budget and what you're looking to spend.
David, I think a good resource for that kind of information also is the Air DNA website.
Exactly.
That you can really drill down to different areas and different cities, and it pulls in a lot of data from Airbnb and vacation rental by owner and tells people, gives it a score on the areas.
Yes.
That was one of the things that really, the Air DNA scores for the touristy places in Belize are 80% and up, which are great scores. So that's part of, I actually just did some research on that very topic because I wanted to compare it to some areas in America. Because again, I'm going to be meeting with investors, right? That would be potentially investing in this. And I wanted to compare the numbers to something in America that they would be familiar with. So and I've actually got some of those here. I'm just pulling them up now because I think, people would find this pretty interesting. Let me zoom in on this a little bit and I can blow it up real big for you guys so you can see it. But yeah, there we go. Can we do,
Well,
can we
you're
do
doing
this?
that, Mike. You're kind of cutting in and out.
Can we do the screen
You're,
share again? Can you do a screen share with me?
yep, you sure can.
All right. So if I do screen share.
Um, you should be able to.
All right. All right. Everybody, can you see it now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. So I was just putting together some notes and this is
Um,
what happened.
No, hold on. Sorry. Little technical difficulty here. Go
Sounds
ahead
like
and try.
you user error to me, buddy.
Yeah, it was me.
No worries. Okay, let me see if this pops up here. Okay, so this is just a Word document. I put notes together, but when I did the air DNA numbers and the Belize district, the Stand Creek district, and you can drill down more on cities and things like that, but I just wanted to give that a comparison to like LA score, New York, Miami, Denver, Gulf Shores, Phoenix, San Diego, Branson, Panama City, even Lake of the Ozarks. Belize was off the charts compared to those real popular areas in America, right? So that's a good sign for those that are wanting to make rental income that, the previous person just asked about. So I would definitely say check out the Air DNA. There's a free version, but if you're going to really buy property, you want to probably pay for the next version up, because then you can really drill down to specific areas and cities and neighborhoods, and it'll give you a great amount of information. And it would, it's worth every penny. If you're going to be buying real estate, you really want to know what you're getting yourself into. So that's all I have on that. So I'll kick it back to you so we can.
Yeah, no, good info. And the Belize district would be San Pedro,
Yeah, Sam,
Gordy,
and
and
Key Caulker. Yeah,
Cocker, and then Stan Creek district would be Placencia, Hopkins,
right.
area. So there's no construction loan serviced at the moment. So that's a no for Delmar Solutions, right? Unless you have what we talked about, option one or option two, right?
Yeah, so if you're doing construction, we can do a lien against those assets, and there's enough that, like, hey, I can buy the property, then I can pay for the construction, and then it's all done. You certainly could use it for that. That's the beauty part about having one loan for all of it, right?
Yep,
But it's not a construction loan,
per se.
um, like a traditional one where in America, where the builders got 5 draw points and we give them the first 20% and they start and we go out and look at it. Is it here? Okay, it's at 20% complete. Give them the next 20%. It's not like that.
Right, right. What about, and this is kind of going along this line here about creative financing, because I've come up with some pretty creative financing in my 14 years here. So depending on what kind of ideas you have, reach out to me and we can talk about it. But let's say I can finance the lot with a developer. Like I have property here, I'm subdivided already, and I'm willing to do seller financing. Could they? Yeah, they could, because it's not tied to the property. They could
That's
do a
exactly
Delmar Solutions and do that. They can finance the lot with me and then take the construction loan, not a loan, but they could do the loan with you for the construction part.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And depending which option and what your financing interest rates are, will fit. I mean, if it's option two, it may be about the same, or option one, I'm sorry, it may be about the same because it's prime. But if it's option two at 3%, that's probably a cheap way to do that. And
Yeah.
because it's a line of credit, okay, I wrote a check. Here it is for the purchase of the land. Now I go talk to the builder, get all that figured out. Now the builder wants 20%. Here's the next. Okay, get started. Then the next and the next. And they could do it as a kind of a construction loan through the process by them doing the draws once it's to that point of the construction.
Yeah. Whenever you do construction though, make sure you have like somebody maybe like me, but somebody with some experience in construction that will go and make sure you're kind of on budget. I have an agent that does this. He typically charges 10%, but his goal is to save that money because he's, working to save money on cost of goods, so to speak. And then he pays the contractor to make sure the subs are paid and all that. So make sure you have some of that because it is buyer beware here, because there's not a lot of laws. And I've seen too many people, get hurt. So just make sure that, and what we do, part of our service at Remax First Choice Belize is we don't want to just sell you the house. We'll introduce you to the builders. We'll introduce you to the property managers. We'll help you the whole, process, so to speak. But there is creative financing, you know, it's all up to what the seller will take. And typically, if one seller doesn't like it, we can go to a next seller. So Alan's asking, looking to invest. I'm from Canada. Who can I talk to? You know, Alan, reach out to me. I think Mitchell would put my email address in there and tell me a little bit about where you're from. I have majority of my agents are from Canada, and I'm happy to partner you with a fellow Canadian that has already moved here and has bought, and you know, because we're not just agents. We drink our own Kool-Aid, so to speak. We all invest here. We all have businesses here. So reach out to me and I can put you with somebody, you know, based on, I'll give you like two choices and you can pick which one you want. Murray's asking, Corozal along the Mexican border considered a safe area? You know, I always say Belize is as safe as any other place in the world. If you want to get in trouble, it's a small country and you kind of know who is doing the bad stuff. And if you get involved in that, it can be a pretty dangerous country. But I travel the whole country. You know, we have a house in Mexico, so I'm always going through Corozal, staying in Corozal. I have an office in Corozal, and we go to Mexico, and we've never had any problems, right? So um, it's just knowing the laws and doing what's right, hanging around people that are doing what's right, treating people the way you want to be treated, and you'll have no problems no matter where you're at. If you do drill down on all the violent crime in Belize, I'd say 80% of it is domestic, drug, or gang related. And if you're not in those three, it's pretty darn safe. You know, I mean, I see kids 4 years old going to the store by themselves, 5 years old, with walking with cash in their hand, going to the store by themselves. I'd never see that in South Carolina, where I'm from. So I personally feel it's a pretty safe country. Never really had any problems. Had a couple things stolen, but I didn't lock them up, or you know, I left them on a table and left for a couple hours and come back and it was gone. But that's, you know, I shouldn't have done that. So as long as you know, yourself, you know, you kind of use common sense, you'll be fine. How is inventory for sale in Belize that is built? How are the costs to build compared to buying already finished homes? Great question. That really depends on where you're looking at. Where I have a lot of products or property in San Pedro is Mahogany Bay Resort. And, you know, those houses are coming in at about $300 a square foot. And typically outside of the resort, you can build for 175, 200. It's just because of the demand, and there's only a certain amount of builders that can build in there. So the ones that are there are pretty busy. So Placencia, we can build for about 175, 200, and that depends on how high-end finishing, right? We're about to do a build project here at Mariposa where we will be adding some tree houses, and a tree house is coming in at about $50,000 US for about 600 square foot unit on concrete post, and finished really nicely. Nice tile, nice finishings, AC, you know, some things included like a bar, the bed frame, things like that. So, you know, everything kind of depends on location, you know. We do have to import everything. So your cost of goods, your tile, your light fixtures and all that will be a little more expensive. But the labor tends to be a little cheaper compared to North America. If I register a Belize LLC and own real estate, may the company make money from renting it? Yes, you can. I own several businesses in Belize LLCs, and some of them are real estate, and you can make money by renting it. You know, you pay your Belize tax. Depending on where you're located, if you're a US citizen, then of course you have to pay your US taxes on it and you have to declare, but you can also write things off. And like, Mike said, he's not a financial planner. I'm not a CPA or a lawyer, but the way I understand it is, and what I do is I depreciate my assets just like I can in the US. And you also get to write off, your trips to Belize and things like that. So um, you can definitely make money by renting it, either whether it's in a Belize LLC or an international business company, an IBC, or in your personal name. You can definitely, even if it's a US LLC or a Canadian company, it just has to be registered here, and you can make money from renting it. So let's see what else, Mike. So if you joined us late, um, Mike is with us. We have about 5 minutes left. If you have any questions on financing, if you missed a lot of it, this will be recorded or it is recorded and it's put on YouTube. So you can revisit it. Mike, what was the timeline that you said on getting the American type financing?
We hope in the next 1 to 3 months, but it's really going to be dependent upon the investing institution that in their time frames.
Yeah, very good. And again, Mitchell's putting in the chat box, expatlenders.com, and how to get in touch with Mike. We put in the Air DNA so you can research it. So there's a lot of tools there in the chat that you can listen to. Alan's asking about passive investment. That is an option. That's one of the companies I do. And actually, I've already talked to Mike about this. I've already done my securities. I already started my the SEC documents to do a investor loan type, or an investor, basically we'll be the bank. And then we'll use Mike and his company. We haven't talked in depth about it, but we'll partner with them where we will give them the money or give you the money to buy a house. Or if you're looking to buy a house, give you the money to buy the house. And then Delmar will partner with Delmar. They'll service the mortgage and all that. So we're going to be his investors. So we are working on that, me and some partners, and that will be a passive option. It will be a 506c. So if you're an American citizen, you'd have to be an accredited investor. I also have a cacao farm and timber farm in Punta Gorda. That is a passive investment. And we also have Mariposa Beach Resort. We're about to do another webinar for the tree houses. And so you can come along and join our families and have a passive investment depending on what you're looking for. I can help you decide if Belize is good for you, or if not, I can introduce you to people if you're looking for passive investments. Like I met with people this week. It's not really, Belize just wasn't a high enough return for them, or the hold time was too long. So I introduced them to some friends that do, they're the syndicators. They're the ones that are doing the passive investments and inviting people to come along with them. And they're doing ATMs, they're doing car washes, oil and gas, apartment buildings, and things like that. So including Capital Group, I saw that come up on the chat. I kind of focus just on Belize right now. We'll probably get into stuff in the US later on. Just haven't found the right opportunity for me yet. But it is an option, Alan. If you reach out, happy to get on a call with you. So thanks, everyone. Catherine Dufour. Okay, thank you. Answer. I will reach out to Richard. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Our next All Access Belize, I don't know if we have a date set yet. If we do, Mitchell will put it in the group chat. Again, reach out to Mike at Mike Anderson at delmarmortgage.com, expatlenders.com. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Give us about 4 or 5 days, and then we'll send you the link so you can kind of, promote this for your end as well.
Sure.
Because it's a lot of great content, and kind of helps keep you not having to meet people and giving them the basics. And then once they see this, then they can reach out to you and you can, speak specifically to them. But again, happy to reach out to Mike anytime, I assume, right?
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks everyone for joining. And stay tuned. Follow us for our next All Access Belize when the dates are. And check us in all of your social media channels. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Mike, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
All right, take care.